Hey guys, Sneaky Snake here, Brothers in Arms, World of Warships, and today's video is our next installment into the Tactics and Strategy series, and our focus in this bit of gameplay is going to be on Soviet light cruisers tiers 6 through 8, specifically the ones that have 152mm guns, namely the Bajoni at tier 6, the Shores at tier 7, and the Chapayev at tier 8. We're going to omit the Mikhail Kutuzov, the premium tier 8 Soviet light cruiser, simply because it's kind of a different dynamic, really, that it has its own smoke, and it also has an incredible range on its main battery. So we're going to omit that one from this video, and we're just going to look at, generally speaking, how you need to play these ships and how you can improve your game in your Soviet light cruisers. So basically, with the Bajoni through the Chapayev, you have, I'm just going to generalize here, you don't necessarily have a lot of hit points, and you certainly don't have the best armor. The Chapayev and the Bajoni actually have decent armor belts, but these things get citadeled really easily. They sit pretty high on the water, and then, of course, at tier 7 with the Shores, you have, I think, 70mm of belt armor at the max, so you can get penetrated and citadeled by high explosive shells from battleships, at least those that, for whatever reason, would be running the captain skill that improves your high explosive penetration. These ships also have mediocre to decent AA. I'd say the Chapayev can get good AA if you go for a full AA build, but AA is not necessarily a strength on these, and they also have rather poor turning radiuses and somewhat sluggish rudder shift times. So that's the bad about the ships. But the good is the performance of these guns. 152mm with the Bajoni, you get 9 of them at tier 6, of course, and then with the Shores and the Chapayev 7 and 8, you get 12 of these guns. And one of the things about these ships is that you generally have best in tier range once you get the ship fully upgraded. For instance, the Chapayev here has a range of 17.3 kilometers, and it only has a surface detect with a full concealment build of 10.2. So what this means is that as long as you're 14.7 kilometers or more away from the enemy, and there's no destroyer within that distance to spot you, you can invisifire. Now, you can invisifire on the Bajoni and the Shores, tier 6 and 7. You have to be using the spotter plane. Obviously, the Chapayev here at tier 8 forgoes the spotter plane with the upgraded hull for the radar consumable. But yeah, you can use the spotter plane to stealth fire, and the range on the Bajoni, I think, is 16.3, and the Shores, I believe, is 16.7 or 16.8. So you can shoot at very long ranges, and these ships really are the mid to long range support ships that spam high explosive. They can go to close range in a pinch, however, they do have very short range torpedoes of 4 kilometers for all 3 tiers. So you're definitely not going to be using these torpedoes all too often, and you're going to have to stay at range because, again, the turning circle combined with relatively bad armor, and these ships do not tank damage very well whatsoever. So here for this game, playing on the map Mountain Range by myself. This is a tier 9 battle. There's a couple tier 9 Friedrich the Grosses that I'll have to deal with. So at the beginning I decided to push up with my gearing friend up to B, simply because this thing has very good concealment. And I am detected, of course, now after I started firing, and my first salvo does land a fire on that Amagi, so it definitely will be a sign of things to come. So at this point, I'm going to turn my focus away from the Amagi, and I'm going to start getting some shots here on these very important tier 9 battleships. The Chapayev and, of course, the mid-tier Soviet light cruisers, they excel at staying at range and being that annoying nuisance to enemy battleships. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you have to stay at range the whole time, but you'll just notice here throughout the replay that this thing, it takes a while to turn, and it takes a while just to do your maneuvers, so you do have to think. These certainly are thinking men's ships where you have to be vigilant and you have to be paying attention. And one commander skill that I have found that is incredibly useful on these Soviet cruisers is priority target, which tells you how many ships are aiming at you when you get detected. So what it allows you to do is look around at the ships that are currently on your screen, and you can see if their guns are pointing at you, and if the ships that are on the screen are not pointing their guns at you, then you know that you're being looked at by a ship that is currently undetected. So it just gives you a greater amount of situational awareness, which of course is very important. Now right here, this is textbook Soviet light cruiser gameplay right here. I am staying at range, and I am just pumping shell after shell after shell downrange at that Friedrich the Grosse. He finally has to pop his damage con because he had 2 fires burning, and he's almost at half health. And I'm going to continue to shoot at this guy. Now, you're going to notice here is I'm going to continue to slowly creep away from him, and once he gets past 14.7 kilometers or so, I am going to go undetected. Now, again, with the 6 and 7 light cruisers, if you have the spotting aircraft, that is the only time that you're going to be able to stealth fire fire, even if you go with the full concealment build. And there we go. The Friedrich de Grosse goes past 14.7 kilometers, and I'm able to shoot at him with impunity without being detected. Set another fire there on the Friedrich. I'm up to 30,000 points of damage, so very good stuff. We have captured Charlie and Bravo so far. Set yet another fire on that Freddy. Very good stuff. So now he's going to have 2 almost full duration fires burning on him. And again, I'm doing this completely from the safety of my own concealment. I am not detected, and there's nothing that he is able to do about it, of course, unless he were to fire completely blind at me. So I've forced a top-tier battleship to turn away, and that right there is a nutshell. That's pretty much what you need to do in these Soviet light cruisers. He is using his repair party to get some of that those hit points back, but obviously those 2 fires are going to pretty much negate any of the hit points that he gets back, because 2 fires is roughly the same amount as using your damage control, getting your hit points back, at least here at the higher tiers. So 360 to 473 now. This is how you play Mountain Range, and I know that the last tactics and strategy video I did with the Montana rate of fire or accuracy, I said on Mountain Range that this is the play that you need to make. You need to capture C and B because it forces the enemy team, if they make a heavy push to A, which they have in this game, it forces them to come through all those narrow gaps in channels in between the islands, so it's a lot easier to predict and to react to where the enemy forces are going. Now what you see me doing right here is hitting the 3 key to bring up the torpedo indicator, and I'm looking where that white line is moving. It's something that has nothing to do with being in a Soviet light cruiser, just some general knowledge here. So it allows you to see which way the ship is moving, so you can get a gauge on what they're doing. It's very helpful when you're shooting at long range. Just see, like a battleship, for instance, that might be bow in. You can't really tell if he's moving forwards or backwards. It's very helpful in that regard. Anyway, full broadside out at the Kagero, and I managed to get my first kill of the game just as I got undetected. 4 shells slam home into that Tier 8 Japanese destroyer. I'm up to 52,000 points of damage done, and of course the 1 ship destroyed. So it's 471 to 467. We have the lead, and short of that Amagi that's still chilling down there over at I-8, the rest of the enemy team is on the opposite side of the islands. So that is a very good thing, and it's going to allow me to control the engagement here very comfortably. I do see the Neptune appear. I did switch the armor piercing just for this occasion because I figured that he might try and back up. I did not use my radar. He backed out of his smoke just too far. Managed to get 3 citadels into that Tier 9 British light cruiser and pick up my 2nd ship destroyed in the game. So very good stuff. Get a broadside out at the Z-23 as he was moving away. And once again, using the torpedo indicator to see if that Dmitry Donskoy is going to push around the corner. I've kept armor piercing loaded just for this instance, and that's why I was able to get the nuke outright on the enemy Neptune. Pardon there for the little bit of lag. And now this Dmitry Donskoy is going to make a play, and he's going to move right in here. Now at this point, I'm in a very compromising position. I'm completely broadside to him. However, a savior comes in right at the nick of time, the gearing, and I thought he was going to pop smoke, actually. Oh, no, never mind. He does not pop his smoke. Somehow I went undetected there for a split second. I have no idea how that happened. I digress. I continue to shoot now at the Dmitry Donskoy. More shells flying in. I'm trying to get this guy on fire, trying to just force him to burn his damage con so then he won't be able to use his repair party, if torpedoes come in and he gets hit by them. The Shimakaze does come around the corner at the same time too, so as I get one last salvo there out on the Dmitry Donskoy, and I'll switch my focus to the Shimakaze, who's at about 16,000 hit points. He's just under 7 kilometers away. Obviously, these guns are very fast flying through the air, and I get a nice solid hit into him. The Shimakaze pops his smoke, so then I immediately use the radar consumable, and again, this is something that the Chapayev is really good at doing. So I'm going to continue to turn to port, however, because I know that there's a battleship over there, and there we go. The Friedrich de Grosse does pop up. However, I was already turning to port, so I'm going to be able to avoid the majority of the shells. I take about 8,000 damage, but it certainly could have been much worse off. And now the Dmitry Donskoy, I switch back to armor piercing as he goes broadside for me, more or less. Pump some shells into his side, do about 7,000 points of damage with a citadel. Very good stuff right there. The Shimakaze, I did catch on fire with my very last salvo, and luckily for me, he was only using the 8-kilometer torpedoes, or I certainly would have taken a lot more damage right there. And I do manage to take out the Shimakaze, 3rd ship destroyed in the game, up to almost 90,000 points of damage. Very, very good stuff. Tank more shells here from the Freddy, and now he has to turn away, and this is my time to shine. So I load the high explosive back up, and I'm now getting ready to shoot more shells down at that battleship. So right there you saw complete cap denial. Use the radar to my advantage, use the rate of fire to my advantage, switch between armor piercing, switch between the 2 targets, and the Donskoy and the Shimakaze were both dead. Yes, I probably could have started shooting at the Shimakaze maybe a salvo or 2 earlier, but I wanted to try to get a fire there on that Dmitry Donskoy to see if he'd burn his repair party. either way, both ships are destroyed. Our friendly gearing is still alive. We did lose one of our destroyers up there, but I'd say that's a pretty decent trade. So it's now 762 to 405, and the majority of the enemy team, or all of the enemy team for that matter, is still trapped over here at Objective Alpha. So now it's time to pad them stats, if you know what I'm talking about. And getting some more long-range shots here at the Friedrich Grosse. Once again, this is where Soviet cruisers shine. That kind of close-range combat that you saw right there, that is definitely something that I do not recommend to do on a regular basis, but if the situation calls for it, these ships can perform decently well in a pinch at close quarters combat. Excuse me. More shells flying down at the Friedrich de Grosse. I'm using my superior speed. One thing I forgot to mention, these Soviet light cruisers are just as fast, if not faster, in some instances than their Japanese counterparts tier for tier, 34, 35 knots for a top speed, which makes these ships very adept at being able to get to a different flank or being able to get into stealth and move about the battlefield. And it's something that, well, quite frankly, the only other cruisers in the game that really can do that are the Japanese ones to a good extent. So I continue to pump more shells at the battleships. I do manage to get a fire here, fire number 9 on the enemy North Carolina, so his superstructure is now ablaze. He's had to pay attention to all the other ships, and I suppose that's also another good thing that I should mention. It's really convenient when you're playing in these Soviet light cruisers when the enemy ship that you're shooting at is completely distracted, and it just allows you to pump that damage per minute, at least the theoretical DPM, into their superstructure and just wreck their face. Another shots here for the forward guns at the North Carolina. Will be able to snag the kill. Yes, I do. Pick up my 4th kill of the game, 114,000 points of damage, and then I switch my focus back to the Friedrich de Grosse, staying bow in, of course, as the island is to my left, but I'm going to try and open up the broadside a bit and get some more shells down at the targets. Now, one thing real quick, when you are using this, the spotting plane, when you're in the shores and at the Bajoniet tiers 6 and 7, it takes a little bit getting used to because you get that top-down view. It's not like a carrier, but your camera goes up a little bit, and it can be somewhat difficult to hit at range. Whenever you're shooting targets at really long range, you want to give them the benefit of the doubt and just assume that they're going at full speed, because the shells, even though these things come flying out of the guns at over 900 meters a second, it still takes quite a while for the shells to get there. Another shot down at the Friedrich de Grosse. I did set 2 fires on him, and I pick up my 5th kill of the game with a Kraken Unleashed and an Arsonist on that Friedrich de Grosse, and I just got the Witherer about 30 seconds ago as well. 134,000 points of damage done to the enemy team. Very good stuff here, and I continue to pump the high explosive shells into that Friedrich de Grosse, the other one, and now I'm switching actually to armor piercing. However, I tried to time his reload to see if I'd be okay. Do have the AP loaded here now. Shooting at the Otago. I'm going to continue my turn because I'm not sure if that Friedrich is going to be shooting at me. But again, I'm pretty sure I timed his reload correctly, so I don't have to worry about taking one into the flank of my ship. And I certainly do not. So now he swings his attention back to the other battleships. So I'm going to load the high explosive and once again shoot. And you can see here how I've never necessarily ran down any enemy ships. I've always been kiting away. And it really does help mitigate your poor maneuverability, simply because the angles firing, say, over the shoulder or back behind you is actually pretty good on your Soviet light cruisers. So getting in close, using your concealment, and then kiting away is something that is extremely deadly, just like on Japanese cruisers, except with these ones you have a faster rate of fire and more range. More shells flying in on the Freddy. Get 2 fires on 1 salvo. That is quite the good thing that happens every once in a while, and it certainly will bring a smile to your ears. More shells flying in on the Freddy. Good stuff there. About 2,000 damage done with that last salvo. He's going to continue to burn with his 2 fires. Will I be able to pick up kill number 6? Will the Bismarck get it? No, he does not. Kill number 6 secured here. 163,000 points of damage. And yeah, this has just been a freaking riot here. 893 to 489. There's still a couple ships left. 1 destroyer, the Otago, and the Bismarck. However, I know where all of them are at this moment. So I'm just trying to get this Otago burning. Now, one thing that is a bit awkward when you're fighting other cruisers that have 203mm guns is that they're able to do significantly more damage to you if they land more shells. And it's very difficult to go against 8-inch gun to cruisers unless you're at really close ranges, because they're able to get those ridiculous AP salvos out, while your AP, well, you know, it's pretty good. I mean, they are stellinium rounds after all. They just don't have the raw damage potential that the 8-inch gun cruisers have. So you got to keep your distance to a degree. Fighting Japanese cruisers in these things can be quite tricky, because you saw right there, I was lucky to not take any torpedoes as I was turning back into starboard. And that's one trump card that those Japanese cruisers certainly have over you. So at this point, 166,000 points of damage. Looking for some shots here now on the Bismarck, swinging my rear turrets into play, and once again right there you can see how I was able to shoot at that Bismarck without being detected. And I should be able to on this one as well, I think. Nope, just got within 14.7 kilometers as I shot. So now I'm going to continue to swing to the right, and I'm going to position myself so if the Bismarck swings his attention to me, I can easily turn just a bit to starboard and hightail it out of there while staying out of his secondary range as well. That's the important thing. However, the game is going to end here, and as my last salvo flies in on the target, we complete a solid game on the Chapayev here on Mountain Range. Alrighty guys, taking a look now at the post-battle results, just shy of 700,000 credits received and just north of 10,000 total XP. I pick up a Witherer, Arsonist, and Kraken Unleashed, 167,000 points of damage, just over 315 target hits with the shells, 14 fires set, 4 citadels, and of course 6 or half of the enemy team sent to the bottom of the ocean. Taking a look at the team score, 2,552 base XP, easily tops in the game, and it was a very solid performance here in the Chapayev. So I hope this gameplay gives you an understanding of how to get the most out of your Soviet light cruisers. Once again, the key points here being stay at medium to longish range, use your high explosive, use the AP when you can to get a little extra damage done, and use your concealment and your good speed to be able to flex around the battlefield, help your allies out, burn down them battleships, and of course when you get to a high enough tier with the Chapayev, use the radar to help your destroyers out as well. Once again, guys, Sneaky Snake here for Brothers in Arms World of Warships signing off. Hope you enjoyed the vid. Please like, comment, and subscribe. All of it is appreciated, and have a fantastic day.